So I'm going to go and show how to figure out what a good sales price should be for a listing if you're getting ready to list a property. I'm going to start by putting in a current client's address right here. So I have 313 Ensalada Way. So this is the Austin MLS, right? And so I just went to search residential, okay? So it pulls up the search criteria. You see these three tabs: criteria, map, and results. So once I pulled this up, I want to include active, under contract, pending, and closed. I have closed within 90 days. I'm probably going to drop that to 60 days. But when you're in a situation like today where everything is just kind of up and down and a little bit of erratic because of how much the interest rates are changing, the closer or the less time, the better. But what that does is it minimizes the amount of results, and especially in a neighborhood where a lot of people bought maybe last year or the year before, because they won't be moving for a while, right? So if it's not a high turnover neighborhood, then you might actually have to extend it out. But you don't want to go too far. So this is a good one, 0 to 60 days. If I have to go to 90, I will. We're only focused on single family properties. I put in an address, and this particular address, and then you can choose how far, what radius. So I'm going to start off, by default, it's 1/4 of a mile. I'm going to do 1/2 mile, and I'll show you why. And it actually removed that. I'll make sure to put it in again. And so, okay. There we go. So as I start typing it into here, it shows up. If not, I can actually click map search and then select the direct area, but this is good. I'm not going to touch anything else. I do know that this particular home is a 4-bed, 2-bath. It's just over 1,500 square feet. But right now, I want to get as many results as I can, and then I can whittle it down from there. Most of these are going to be in HOA, the Austin area. If it's a newer construction home, it's predominantly going to be in an HOA. And there's some other things in here that we can look at, but we don't need to restrict it yet. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the map, and I want to see what that looks like. Okay, so this is what the map looks like. This is my starting point. So this is that address. And then this shows some of the other houses that are around. When you zoom in a little bit, you can actually see this is how the neighborhood layout is according to the highway and where this home is in the neighborhood. And of course, there are variables like, does it back up to a green belt or a dump or the highway or any of that? No, this house is actually in a really good position. And so that's not going to dock it for any value, right? Some other houses that might be for sale, which aren't right now within that criteria, they might be right here. So when you're looking at comparing the houses, you don't want to be in a situation where you're looking at houses that are along here and saying that this is the same price, because that's not how that works. Once again, this is going to be a super, like, kind of a high level. I'm not going to spend too much detail on it, but I want to give you a high level overview of like how we're coming up with these numbers. Okay, so really I want to target this exact neighborhood. It's the best way, but notice I don't have any results. All my results are in this neighborhood over here. So I'm going to go back to my criteria and I'm going to choose 90 day. And see if that adjusts it some. There we go. So now we have a few more in this neighborhood up here, this neighborhood over here, and this one here. So it's important to know how the neighborhoods are set up. So this neighborhood, when I look at one of the houses, so this is the 3-bed, 3-bath, 4-bed, 2-bath. So I'm going to click on this. This 4-bed, 2-bath house, 1,600 square feet, it closed at 327. I'm going to show you the closing and the active and all that sort of stuff in a minute. But I just wanted to open it up and take a look. So right now I wanted to point out that this is a 2.27 tax rate and $200 a month quarterly HOA. Okay. That's important because when I go back to the map and I look at the neighborhood over here, okay, so I'm looking at the house, the tax rate, 2.7 and $78 a month. So higher HOA, higher taxes. So once people understand that their budget will restrict them from coming over here, this becomes a lot more appealing. And you notice green is for sale, is available, active for sale. Yellow means it already has a contract and they're just going through doing their inspections and getting all the paperwork in order so that they can close. And red means it's already been sold. When we're doing comps like this, we only care about what's been sold. Okay, so like in this neighborhood, this 4-bed, 2-bath was sold for 327. This one was sold for 330, but it's a 3-bed, 3-bath. Keeping in mind that the date it sold is also relevant, right? So the date this sold was in September. We're in January, right, of 2024 when at the recording of this video, toward the end, so almost February of 2024. So this is a long time ago that this closed, right? So really, looking at this, there's no competition. If somebody wanted to be in this neighborhood, like let's say they were targeting this neighborhood, we could price it at, not whatever we want, but pretty darn high because it's a lower tax rate. It's still a newer construction home, and it's in a neighborhood where there's no other opportunities available. Obviously, that's going to depend on how good the pictures are, and then when we actually put it out, list it for sale. So right now, as I'm recording this video, it's what is it, Wednesday night. If I wouldn't be able to get it up by this Friday and have it look really good, but by the following Friday, so if I had it up by the following Thursday and everything was beautiful and all that, if nobody else came on the market, we've got a good shot at getting a much higher price. But if 3 other houses are having this same discussion right now and they're all putting it on the market and they all go live next weekend, well, that's going to suck, right? So I just want to be super clear about that. So now I'm going to show you how the results work. So when we look at the results, I'm going to go to single line. This is what agents see. And I'm going to discuss what the columns are because it's really important for you to understand. Okay, so first column is status. Remember I said you have active, pending, and closed status. We're only focused on the closed status homes, right? That's all that matters. You notice the reason why is you'll notice there's no other data over here. Because it's not closed, you don't know what somebody's actually going to pay. You think you know. Somebody could list, so 208 Copper Lily is a great example. It's listed for $444,000. It's already been sitting there for 190 days, probably because it's a new construction. Yeah, year build 2023. But it's been sitting there for half a year. So it didn't sell at that. So you can't use that as a comp. So that's why we have to go and look at what is actually closed and at what sales prices. So this is the status. Next is the area, which notice right here, CLN stands for Cedar Park Leander, LH stands for Liberty Hill. So even though it showed up in the same group, this is why we want it to be in the same neighborhood and pretty tight. And some neighborhoods are in multiple cities, but it's important because what that means is it might be zoned to a different school district. How many people are like, I only want to be in this school district in this neighborhood? A lot of people once they start doing their research. And so like this one, I wouldn't expect it to sell as high. In fact, it doesn't. So we'll get to there in a second. So this is number of bedrooms, number of full bathrooms, number of half baths. So it's a 4-bed, 2 full baths, no half baths, garage spaces. So 2 garage spaces, not 2.5 like this one, just 2. And then level is how many stories. So it's a single story. Remember, we don't have basements here in Texas, so you're looking at single story, maybe a 2-story, maybe a 3-story if you're in the city. And then year built, okay? Acreage, what's the lot size? So like this 120 Ensalada has a lot size of less than a quarter acre, so 0.17 acres, which is pretty common. But now look at this one. This one was built in 1984, this 608 Baker, built in 1984, but it has almost 3 acres. And so, of course, it's going to sell at a higher price, right? So we're not going to count that in when we're doing our averages. We're going to have to remove that from the list. It's not in the same neighborhood, which is why you can't just automatically go by the sales price or what's closed or where it's at. You got to be really cognizant of all of these different things. So price per square foot, this is really important. So hold on, I think we missed square foot. So square footage is right here. Okay, what's the square foot of livable space? This does not count the garage. We don't have basements. Some houses do, but very few do. So we're not counting that. Livable space. So if you converted a garage into an apartment or something, that's a whole other discussion, but that's not this. Okay, so list price, this is what they chose to list it at. This is what the list price is when you're dividing it by square feet. So this one is listed at $203 per square foot. Okay. And so you see a lot of these are around $200 a square foot, but those aren't the ones that are closing. These are the ones that are closing. So when we're looking at the ones that are closing, this one closed at $193 a square foot. It was the listed price. Now you have some of these blank sections. This is the closing price per square foot. So this one was listed at $193 per square foot, which is $327,000, but it closed at the same. The one below it, let's talk about this 213 Ensalada, was listed at $222 per square foot, which gives it a price of $335, but it closed at $218, which gives it a closed price of $330. Okay, so they probably asked for the sellers to help them with either repairs or closing costs or something like that. And so it reduced the closed price of the house from what it was listed at. And I tell my clients this all the time, like you got to be cognizant and always have a buffer. People are going to ask you for something. Every contract says as is. Every seller says, I want to get the best price. I want to sell it as is. But the reality is every buyer also wants the best price and wants to buy it with everything fixed at the lowest price possible and make it all super easy and have you pay for everything. So like it's a tug and pull. So next you have the closing date. So this is really, really, really crucial because these all closed last year. There's nothing that's closed this year. There's no competition. It's kind of exciting, right? Except there are these houses that are all active. This has been on 2 months. Half a year, half a year, half a year, half a year, half a year. There's only one house built in 2021, a resale house that's been out for a while. And this is important because resale houses, they're put on the market, everybody gets ready, they put it on the market, and then it sells within a normal amount of time. New construction, they cheat. They put the house on the market before there's even a foundation half the time. And so you're sitting there with the house on the market and you can't actually buy it. They're just doing that to get people to call them. It's kind of frustrating, but whatever. And it skews the numbers. So we got to take those out. We can't include those. But this one we can. It's 42. So it's active. This is the only competition right now. It's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, and a half bath. But it's really close. Look at that. It's listed at 487. So it's not really competition because it's also 500 square feet larger. And it's almost, I would say like 100,000 more than the subject property, which is 313 Ensalada Way, right? So this is pretty good right now. I'm looking at this thinking, if we listed Ensalada and compared it to this, now it's been on the market for almost 2 months, but if we compared it to this, we're looking at a sales price, a listing price of, I don't know, 375, right? The only difference is it's half a bath and 500 square feet. It's not a lot. That's really cool. Oh, and I didn't actually talk about the days on market and cumulative. So days on market is how many days it's been sitting there listed on the market for sale. So like I said, 42 is about right. We're trending right now, as of this video, about 40 to 80 days, which is still not even a normal market. A normal market, an even market, houses sit on the market for 6 months. The fact that it's only been sitting for, and we're talking resale houses, the fact that it's only been sitting for 2 months is no indication of anything other than that it's an active house. We're moving into a buyer's market. It's kind of challenging. I'm not going to go into that because that's not relevant to the conversation, but right now you have buyers that are asking for things and you have sellers that are willing to give things. And so that conversation is happening. Sometimes if you're in a seller's market, the sellers aren't going to give you anything. And so they can charge you everything for the house. You'll probably end up paying more and they don't have to fix anything because you want it and they have 10 other people in line. Where when it's flipped and it's a buyer's market, you have a ton of options, a ton of resale options, and have your pick of the litter. So sellers are like, I'll give you 20,000 and new carpet. I'll give you 5,000 and I'll give you new paint and I'll fix everything wrong with the house. Like those are the kinds of negotiations you have, and it goes back and forth a little bit. So anyway, I just wanted to be very clear on this. And so now I'm going to go back to the map, make sure that we only have relevant style homes. I like this neighborhood and this neighborhood, but I don't like the brand new construction if I can avoid it, because this is not a new construction home. So let's stick with this. These are all closed. Oh, there's one active. Okay, so this looks better. These are comparable neighborhoods in my mind because the tax rate's similar, the sizes of the lots are similar, the number of rooms, all of that is similar. So I'm going to go back into here. And now here, this is a real, like a much better comparison. So we're looking at these numbers, and really I should be calculating this. And I will calculate this. But right now, looking at this, we've got closed prices 4.2, 4.3, 4.2. So this one closed at 100. It was listed at 196 a square foot, but it closed recently. They listed it before Christmas. We don't know their situation. They may have had to move for a job, and they ended up closing at 188 a square foot, which was 15,000 less. We don't know their situation, but we know that it sat on the market for 38 days. Pretty interesting. This is a 3.2. I can look at it because it's about the same size as the subject property. Smaller houses generally sell for more per square foot because they're in the same neighborhood, right? So you don't want the smallest house, you don't want the biggest house, you want something in between those, because that's, people just want like it's the Pareto principle, 80-20 rule, right? So the 80% of the houses are what are easier to sell. So right now I'm looking, it was listed at 235. It actually went higher. It closed at 238. So the reason why something like that would happen is because you probably had first-time buyers who needed to buy a house and they didn't have all the cash. And so what they did is they increased the sales price and then gave them seller credits. And the only thing you're seeing here is the sales price, not the credits that the seller gave the buyers. In fact, let's look at it. Let's see if we can spy on that real quick. This is MLS, of course, so we're able to see some things a little different. It just says great transaction, no repairs. Here it is. Buyer credit closing costs, $12,000. So the buyer gave the seller gave the buyer $12,000 to be able to afford the house. That's why they went up in price. Man, I'm glad I do this. and I understand it. There's so many people that do this and they don't actually understand what they're doing. This one is active under contract. So usually this is a status where they've accepted a contract, but the earnest money hasn't been received. And so it's like in limbo, right? The earnest and option money hasn't been received. So it's in limbo. Oh, but sometimes agents use that and they're doing it incorrectly. Or I think there's also an active contingent where they have another home for sale. And that's important for you to know too, but none of those are in there. So looking at this, looking at the current competition, which is really only Gemini, is the only other current competition. These are all resale homes. This 1984 doesn't count. And so I'm looking at it and it looks like we're at about $215 a square foot easily, right? I could even go with a range, and I'll do the real math, but I can go with a range of $215 to $230 a square foot. So if I did $220 a square foot was what, 15, I'm going to say $1,550 for that subject property. We're at $341,000. Okay. So that gives us a price point of $341,000, assuming that all these other properties look good and are in a good spot. So let's go back and look. So like this house, probably harder to sell because it's backing up to the highway. So I would almost take that out. That's probably why it sat, maybe why it sat a little bit longer. This one too, backing up to the highway. Sort of. I mean, there's a building here. I don't know what it is, a school or whatever, or a gas station. Looks like a strip mall, but it's still backing up to the highway. Like they look in their backyard and they see cars flying down 183. So those are less enticing. And then this one is the one that's just like the acreage, almost 3 acres. So yeah, that's it. I think that this kind of helps us understand how things work. We got to look at pictures. We have to look at some of their marketing. So like if I look at this house, this Shawley Pass, I want to look in here and I want to see if the pictures that were taken, like these are pretty good pictures. It's not staged, like there's nothing on the walls, but it's fairly decent as far as cleanliness, right? So it's bright. They even did the HDR photos. So because normally if you take a picture with your phone or anything like that, the angles are off. People don't know how to take pictures. Angles are off. And then you can't actually see. This is usually whitewashed out. And so this is really cool because they spent a good amount of money on a professional photographer, or they took the pictures and they know what they're doing. So all of that to say, you can see why this one was picked up and it actually closed for more. Very cool. All right. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you for watching. Appreciate you subscribing, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.